Hey folks, how's it going? So I'm back again. It is about 8:46 on Monday, December 4th, 8:46 p.m. I'm a little late getting this out there, but uh, I've been fighting some old demons, worried about how my message is going to be perceived, and took me some time to get over that and get in a place where I'm putting it out there. Where I'm at right now, and it's not. I'm not going to worry about where everybody else is and how they perceive or internalize or judge what I share. I'm going to share what's up for me. So this was intended to be an end of year message for 2020, and it has now turned into a beginning of the year message for 2021. Um, so I'm going to start out by saying that I've heard a lot of comments from people that the only good thing about 2020 is that it is over. This is a similar sentiment that I've seen plastered all over social media for the past few days as we were approaching the end of 2020 and getting ready to enter 2021. Um, I am reading off of my teleprompter to some degree. I have some bullets and notes here just so you're aware, with my eyes glancing back and forth and reaching over. I realize I'm making broad generalizations in the things that I'm about to share and say. In many ways, it may not be true for some. At the same time, I believe it is true for many people. And I also believe it's a prime example of how privileged, maybe even spoiled and selfish, so many of us are. What I imagine about the people sharing these statements is that they are out of touch with the degree of suffering large segments of our population go through year after year, day after day. I include myself in this group of people, as I had the same thoughts and stated the same thing until I really took time to reflect on the reality of life for myself compared to others. I've also heard or read very little from people about what they appreciate from 2020. It is as though every single thing throughout the entire year was negative. Yet I know from just watching uh, recent Christmas and Thanksgiving posts that many of you shared, uh, that you shared those holidays with family, with friends, and that you had good food to eat and you had presents to open. You had places to go. Some of you took vacations, got away for the weekend. Stop for a minute and think of the people who year after year struggle with health issues, many of them without insurance to get proper care and treatment. Think about the people who die every year due to lack of access to health care, food, shelter. Think of the individuals and the families struggling with the effects of drug addiction, depression, anxiety. Consider those who face diverse forms of oppression day in and day out because of the color of their skin or who they choose to love. Consider the mothers, fathers, and children who live in fear that a loved one might not come home because they get pulled over for speeding and end up murdered. Think about the children growing up without a mother or father or both. What about all the children in foster care? What about the soldiers that are deployed for months and years at a time, keeping them from family and friends? What about the soldiers and the families of soldiers who never make it home? There are so many devastating challenges that so many suffer through each and every year, and quite often for years on end. and even entire lifetimes, that I could not possibly mention them all. Therefore, I would say this was not even close to the worst year of life for most of us. It certainly was not the worst year of life for me. Yet it is quite telling about our culture that so many people considered this the worst year ever because they couldn't get haircuts, weren't permitted to shop whenever they wanted, and were expected to social distance and wear masks in order to limit the number of deaths experienced from COVID and COVID-related complications. Yes, I am so very sorry your freedoms were so greatly and unjustly hindered in the name of compassion for your fellow humans. I want to be clear. My intention is not to make light of the very real suffering that millions of Americans experienced in 2020 as a direct result of the pandemic. Millions lost jobs and businesses, housing, and went hungry. Hundreds of thousands lost their lives, and millions of families and friends were affected by those deaths. This was quite a difficult year indeed. However, it was by no means the worst year in our country's history, even most of our lifetimes. And for those who think it was, I question how much hardship you've experienced in life, or how much empathy you have for those experiencing things on a regular basis that might have only become a reality for you during this pandemic. So you might ask, how was my year? It was difficult. My business suffered due to COVID and due to me being sick. I was so sick that I literally thought I was dying for a couple of months. I lost my housing. I still might lose my truck. My trailer was recently wrecked, and I've yet to get final word from the insurance company regarding the outcome. I've accumulated almost $10,000 in medical debt after a 50% income-based discount before basically closing my business to qualify for Medicaid. I still have almost no income, and I'm relying on the generosity of friends to sustain me. I still might have to have my gallbladder removed, but I'm working hard on cleansing and diet changes to hopefully avoid that. I still have at least one medical or dental appointment to attend each week, sometimes more. I just had a tooth pulled this morning. I spend a decent amount of my time depressed or anxious, worried about how I'm going to survive. And despite all of this, I can still find many things to appreciate. I haven't lost any friends or family to COVID. My son has moved into his first apartment for him and his daughter. I was happily able to give him my furniture and household belongings to furnish his place. He is such a responsible young man and a great father. I had the absolute pleasure of being a grandfather for the past year and look forward to continuing that as I've made it through this illness. I've been motivated by my sickness to make major changes to my lifestyle and eating habits that will allow me to live a much healthier and happier second half of life. I've reconnected with some passions and friends. I feel like I am truly appreciative of myself and learning to love myself. I am drafting plans to begin working on my tiny mobile home this summer. This is something I have been wanting for several years. While I was originally planning to start it in a couple more years, the events of this past year, especially my brush with death, have convinced me it is never too early. I have procrastinated on many things my entire life. If I am able to carry one thing into this new year, I want it to be that I stop putting things off. I am acutely aware that I do not have unlimited time. I want to realize my potential. I want to stay connected to and move more fully into living my passions. I want to continue learning to accept and love myself and to not be afraid to put myself out there. I thank you all for being a part of my good and my bad to whatever degree we interact. Thank you to all those who have supported me, listened to me, helped me open to new and different things and ways of thinking. And not just over this past year, but throughout my journey. Some of you I'm not connected with anymore. Some of you I believe I'll be connected with for as long as we are both here. Thank you to my son for loving me at my worst. I sincerely hope this coming year is wonderful for each of you. I also sincerely hope you can focus a greater amount of energy on those who suffer in our society on a regular and continual basis. I hope we, as a whole, can learn to live with greater empathy and compassion. I hope we can open our minds and our hearts to things beyond our individual needs and understanding. It's a tough life, folks. Tougher for some than for others. And I think all of us are guilty of just getting caught up in the day-to-day, just focused on ourselves and our immediate family and surroundings. And if we ever knew, we often lose touch with what lots of people really experience and go through on a regular basis. For myself, I want to recommit to being present to the world and the people around me, outside of myself and my individual family. And to find ways to make this life better for many. We have the means and the power and the resources to eliminate a lot of suffering. Yes, suffering to some degree is always going to be a part of each individual person's life. There's always going to be accidents, there's always going to be deaths, there's always going to be divorce and hardships. But there's many things we can do to mitigate the effects of those things. We can eliminate a lot of suffering by providing health care to everyone. We can help people to develop emotionally and mentally by providing better education and free college education. We have plenty of resources to devote to food and housing. I want you to really think as you move into this new year about what it is you might be able to do differently. Whether that's investigating some social issue or problem and looking at it from different and diverse perspectives than what you're used to looking at it from. whether it's learning to love yourself more and care for yourself more and connect to your passions more. I don't want to. I'm not. I'm not making New Year's resolutions, and I'm not asking you to do that. I'm just setting intention, and I'm asking you set intention to be and do better in this next year, and to remember those who are struggling. Thank you all.